and welcome to Spark of Light Spiritual Chat Show. Do not adjust your sets. Yes, I am back. Yes, and I don't lie down for long. Still fighting on my little illness that's going on at the moment, but I will fight it through. And that's what I suggest for anybody who's struggling in life right now. Keep on fighting and moving forward. I am delighted tonight to have Judith with me. And Judith, I would like to thank you very much for last week for you doing all the hosting and chairing it all for me. You've done absolutely amazing, and I thank you from my heart for everything that you've been doing for me and all your support in the background that people have not seen, you know, where you've just been there for me. So I want to thank you so much for that. Now I would also like to say it's not a sexy voice that Judith has tonight, I'm afraid. She's actually lost her voice, okay? So it may come and go, high-pitched, up and down, okay? But or is that your sexy voice, Judith? Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Sorry.
It's going to be a quiet night anyway. What is this?
So you can't answer back. So it's really good. Yeah. Yeah, but no joking aside, I know you've not got any pain or anything, but it is not pleasant to be like that. So I do hope you get your voice back. So any spiritual healers out there, please send Judith some healing to get her voice back. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now tonight we have an interesting guest. And as you know, in Sparkle of Light, the chat show, we vary from different perspectives of people who come forward. And tonight we have just that. So we have Louise Bowditch. I think that's how I pronounce it. You've got a name like mine. You know, I get called Trevorrow, and then I get called tomorrow. I get called all sorts. Never mind, but that's just the name of it. But Louise, I really am looking forward to bringing you on the show. Now, Louise, you are also a clinical hypnotherapist. You're a nature connection guide as well. And you're very passionate about helping people who are in businesses to heal trauma, anxiety, stress, you know, any sort of challenges, basically, not just for businesses, but for people in general. You know, you like to help with that. And I know you've got accreditations that follow through with that as well. And also you've got this neuroscience, psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, nature's healing power that you have got wrote down here that I'm just repeating. And you help reconnect people with their true selves. So that's quite interesting, because what is our true selves? You know, how do we find our true selves? So that's an interesting topic as well. But I do like it. I like how you bring that forward. And you say, you know, women reconnecting with their true selves through the natural world, empowering them to embrace a life of freedom, fulfillment, and success. So I'm looking forward to having you on now. So why not just carry on and let's get Louise brought onto the show. And if anybody is out there who does have some questions, this is live this evening, so please put it in the comment box and give StreamYard permission to do so as well. I'll be putting all relevant details at the bottom here, just underneath, that you'll be able to see any contact information and also anything that's relevant to what's going on with Spark of Light Spiritual Chat Show, Spark of Light Spiritual Events, and of course, whatever our physical medium Judith Miller has got coming up as well. So without any further ado, let us welcome Louise Bowditch.
Good evening. Hello. Hi, Alice. Hi, Judith.
Hi there. Hi, and welcome. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you.
And also, it's great to have a little bit of inspiration, especially, you know, with the way things are in the world just now as well. You know, there is a lot of trauma, stress, and healing that's needed. So can I just ask you just a little bit about your journey, and where it began a little bit? Let's go a little bit back and bring it into the present time.
Back in time. Okay. Well, I'll give it a potted history because it's been quite a roller coaster. So my own childhood trauma has informed a lot of how my life has taken shape, but it's led me on a path that I didn't ever think it would. So despite the upset and the difficult challenges with my mental health over the years, I have reached a place now at the grand old age of 57 where I'm feeling as though I've got where I need to be. And I've said that at the various stages throughout my sort of past, but this feels very different. And I've had an eclectic career. I have done all sorts of different things, but mainly when my children were younger, I was at home with them. And then I sort of lived in the States for a couple of years, which was really interesting. And then about, 6 years ago, I was having another real struggle with my mental health, and so had some hypnotherapy for the second time. I'd had some when I was in the States 20 years previously, and then I had some again about 6 years ago. And something that the hypnotherapist said, I have told her since, but I think she planted a seed. And those seeds are very powerful because I said, I love how the brain works. I love this. It's amazing. It's incredible. I couldn't believe that it had taken me up until I was about 50 to actually discover it fully. I said, I love this. It's just brilliant. And I ended up saying, this is amazing. And she said, well, who knows? Maybe you'll become a hypnotherapist. That was the seed.
That was the seed planted there. Yeah. So what did you do after this then? Did you go into a course?
I investigated a few different courses, and I did an online course that was very inspirational with a well-known hypnotherapist, Marissa Peer. And then from there, I did another course and then enrolled in my diploma for February 2020. So just as COVID was ramping up, we started our course.
Maybe I might be better typing my name.
You'd be better typing it in. Yeah, you type it in and I'll repeat. That's okay, darling. It's fine.
I can see the chat. I can also see the chat, Judith, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So,
right.
So I did my diploma in 2020, and then since then have trained in other modalities, increased my hypnotherapy training, etc. And then more recently, from last year, started to introduce nature into my practice in hypnotherapy, and then it's kind of morphed from there. I can only describe that as a soul whisper last year, and it was like, take your camper van, go out into nature, do your hypnotherapy sessions in nature, which I did, and it's actually morphed from there. So now I'm working more.
How did that
go? It was brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah, because I do remember you telling me that you were going out in your camper van and doing these things. Yeah, I kind of tour about on we've got a towing caravan, so I go about with my towing caravan into different places as well, and I don't do anything in the caravan, but I do bring that with. It's a great way for transportation, for going around and doing your work for Spirit World, voluntary, charity, whatever you're doing, but I do also feel that what you are doing is all very much part and board of the spiritual aspect of Spirit World as well. I don't know if you believe in that part of it or not. But I do believe you are definitely a spiritual soul working to heal others, and you're a healer. You're a healer in a different way, you know. But without you going through the experience that you went through, then you probably wouldn't be where you are today, as you say, because you wouldn't understand the concepts of what that felt like. Don't you agree with that?
Definitely. I think my lived experience has given me something that can't be trained.
Yeah.
So that is a very different, it's very different to just being able to go through the process because you've learned something from a book or someone's told you how to ask questions and deliver a hypnotherapy session. So, and I am connected to otherworldly realms. I don't know quite how, but I know that I am. And depending on my client's own belief system, I will bring in concepts to broaden their horizons, to enable them to have a more spiritual existence if that feels right for them. So, but I do feel that I've been on a bit of a mission, and I've not really known what that mission's been a lot of the time. So I've sort of gone from one thing to another, thinking, well, is this the mission? Have I kind of, like arrived at, whatever what I'm supposed to be doing, and then something else will turn up, and so then it changes yet again.
Yeah.
But now there's a different energy, a different feeling coming from this work I'm doing.
Yeah. It feels more maybe connecting. You feel more connecting with it.
Yes, definitely. Connected to myself, connected to others, connected to beyond. Just the human experience, I suppose.
Yeah. Judith has got a little question here for you. Louise, did you find training as a hypnotherapist hard, or did you find the more you trained, the more it kind of pulled you into the actual course? What do you feel about that?
I didn't find training as a hypnotherapist difficult. It was very, very interesting a lot of the time, and I don't want this to sound big-headed, but a lot of the time I was like, oh, this is all familiar to me. I found it very easy to absorb the information.
Something you were meant to do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I also think that I've had this a couple of times before. So in my previous careers, in my previous lives, in this incarnation, certainly I've been a florist, and I knew that I'd worked with flowers before because everything came so naturally to me, and also as a photographer, and I've done that as well, and that came. Not necessarily the technicalities. I wasn't very technically able, but certainly posing, composition, texture, tone, styling, all of those things came very easy to me. So, and this feels like another version of that. There's a knowing, a remembering, rather than a learning.
Yeah. What about clients that come to you then? Do you find that you have clients quite similar experiences to perhaps what you've went through?
Some of them, yes, but not all. And I've only recently started working or sort of specifically working with trauma. But it was anxiety. When I first started out, it was anxiety that was my main sort of client, was struggling with anxiety. And that is something that I've struggled with all my adult life.
Okay.
So that was definitely a reflection. And someone very wise said to me once that we teach what we need to learn.
Yeah, that's very true. That is so true. Yeah, we do teach what we need to learn. That's true. Yeah. Also, I don't feel that we ever get over like trauma, but we learn to live with it. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes, I would say that what tends to happen, or what's happened in my own personal case and some of the cases that I've worked with, is that there's the emotional fuse that was igniting so many of the symptoms of PTSD and poor mental health due to unprocessed and unresolved trauma. What tends to happen is that there's an acceptance of the past, which helps to diffuse the impact it has in the present moment. And then depending on what stage of a person's recovery that they're at, depends whether they then go and have to seek other holistic therapies to support them, whether or not hypnotherapy is often, the last chance saloon. I don't know why, but lots of people said, I've tried everything before and nothing seems to work, so you're my last hope. So it depends really on everyone's personal circumstances, but certainly living a fulfilling life, having been able to find a way to keep the past as the past, not letting it define you in the moment, and then being able to look forward in a more positive way.
There is an awful lot though of when we go for like professional help, they want to give you medication to dull the senses down, and it's a temporarily kind of fix, because you will at one point have to deal with it, and these senses will come back to the surface again in more ways than one, and you will have to deal with the past, and you can't escape the past, but you can learn to live with the past and move on, and move forward. The past is what's made you what you are today, and I look at things as well from my own perspective and things that's happened to me in my life from childhood to young adolescent, and I look at it as, well, thank you for those experiences, because actually you made me stronger, and you made me, come out fighting and finding who my true self was. And my true self wasn't what you said I was, if you know what I mean. I wasn't weak, I was strong, I wasn't weak at all. I have found me now, and I'm not going to be put down. I'm not going to be shoved in a corner and made to feel worthless and useless. And a lot of people do feel that hopelessness, and if we can use our experiences to help other people, like what you're doing, what I'm doing, Judith's doing, we're doing it in a different way, but if we're helping other people, we are also helping ourselves without realizing it.
Do you not find, Louise, that there's different levels? Like different levels of the trauma. So as you go through the process and it kind of heals, that helps you for that period, that part of your journey. But at some stage, those triggers come back. Ways.
Yes. I mean, there's quite a lot. That's quite a loaded question.
You've actually said something really important there. Trigger.
So, in sort of the more recent explanations of trauma, they talk about big T trauma and little t trauma. And the big T traumas, there's 10 adverse childhood experiences that can cause the big T trauma. And I know I probably won't be able to remember all 10 of them, but they are things such as neglect, domestic violence, addiction, mental health, incarceration, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and there's 10 of them. So they're classed by psychotherapists as the 10 adverse childhood experiences that can predispose someone to PTSD, for instance, post-traumatic stress disorder. And from that, their experiences as they were younger tend to inform how they behave and how they're able to emotionally process things as an adult. And it's such a large subject that I'm not going to do it much justice here. But if you're dealing with something that is a one-off event, perhaps as an adult, then your experience of healing from that one-off event is likely to be very different from someone who suffered maybe years of witnessing domestic violence at home, or years of neglect by their caregivers or something, as severe as that. So everyone's experience of trauma is different. Two people could be in the same, I don't know, say car accident, and because of their own environment when they were growing up and their conditioning, they would then potentially have very different responses to the trauma of being in a car accident. So no two journeys are the same.
No.
But you're right, I think, about the layer, the depth. There's never usually just one thing that will trigger someone, or at least there won't be one thing that you can find to begin with. As you come down the layers as a hypnotherapist, and when I work with trauma, I do believe that finding the root cause will often have like a snowball effect and impact positively lots of other issues that the person was struggling with. So, but yes, I think you're right. As someone goes through their life at different stages, they'll find some therapies really helpful. They'll go back to that same therapy 5 years later and it won't have the same impact. They'll go and find a different therapist, a different holistic practitioner. They'll find relief in that way, and they'll come down through the layers. So it just depends which way someone goes about it.
So what's happening when that's taking place, like you're explaining? Each time they heal that layer, triggers can change?
I guess so, yes.
So it's understanding the trigger each time.
Yes. It does depend on how deeply you work with someone and if someone discloses something to you. So I've had clients come and not disclose something until literally the last session. They have an epiphany and it's linked with this thing that they didn't disclose. And I'm like, well, crikey, if you told me that to begin with, I'd be thinking, well, that has probably got something to do with it. I never assume that I can, predict what's going to help, what's going to alleviate someone's discomfort. But definitely,
that's what's causing it, and that's why they can't claim.
Yeah. I've just put a little post up in the comment box. If anybody's got any questions at all for our guest Louise Bowditch, if you would just let us know, please. And we will ask Louise if there's any questions that you perhaps would like, perhaps you haven't asked or went to see about, or it surfaces inside you and you would like to ask a question. Then please ask, as Louise is here tonight, and she will also be answering some questions. So just let us know. I would like to kind of go back a little bit though on, you said you went out in the camper van. How did that work then? Did you park up somewhere, or what did you do?
So I actually used the power of social media to find out if there was anywhere locally close to where I live in near Winchester in Hampshire in the UK, and someone who is a warden of a nature reserve got in touch with me and said, hey, the charity that runs this nature reserve are all about well-being, so you're welcome to come and park Bertha, name of my camper van. You're welcome to come and park Bertha in the car park here and use the nature reserve. So that's what I did. And he was a very, very kind and generous person who kind of answered my plea. And so that's what I did. And I used to park up Bertha. I used to put the kettle on and wait for my clients to arrive. And then we would have a brew. And we would, depending on the weather, depending on how the client felt, sometimes we would start with a mindful walk around the nature reserve. It wasn't very big. It wasn't a kind of fancy nature reserve with sort of lakes and woodlands and everything. It was quite a piece of land that was saved from development, basically. So it's quite a small piece of land, but nevertheless they had beehives there, they had deer, they had all sorts of wildlife. They had a small pond, they had long grass that they would keep long in the summer for the insects and everything. So, and we would take a little walk around it and use some mindful walking meditation, and then bring them back to Bertha for the change work.
Bertha, I love it. So how did you name the camper van?
How did we? Well, I bought her from a friend, and my friend had called the van Bert because she'd bought it off an older gentleman called Bert, and he had it converted a long time ago, and she bought it. She had the van for 18 months, 2 years, and she is very artistic and very creative, and so she revamped the interior. And then when I decided that I was going to buy Bertha, I was like, this Bert is not the name. And also, as someone pointed out to me, she said it's a little bit like Rebirth, isn't it? Rebirther. So that's, and I said, I kind of instinctively knew that, even though I hadn't said it. So Bertha it is.
Yeah. Well, we've got quite a few guests on. I'm just having a little look just now, Louise, and we have got Eva from France.
Hello, Eva.
Yeah, so welcome on. And so we've got a few different nations here. Deirdre as well, Stephanie, Julie, Jeanette. I'm just going through a few people. Welcome on here. Margaret, quite a few people joining us just now. So welcome everybody that's coming on, and from all the different, and Tammy as well. Deirdre, I don't know if I mentioned that. Stephanie's asking a question though. Stephanie's asking a question. It's not kind of related to our guest tonight, but it doesn't matter. We're here for answering certain questions to do with spirituality and spiritual work. But she says here, Judith, hello, I am a beginner to intermediate level medium. I can get good evidence, but in groups and with advanced mediums during practice, I block myself. Any advice on getting ego out of the way? It's not so much ego that's the problem,
fear.
Stephanie.
Fear. It's fear. She's Stephanie, you have to understand you're as good as the people you sit with. There's no difference. There's no hierarchy.
Yeah, no.
You're seeing other people as higher or further on. They're not. We just all work different ways. That's why you're feeling you're blocking yourself.
Okay.
But
if you actually say to yourself, I block myself, you will. Yeah. You have to change your way of thinking on that. And before you actually start to work with spirit world, you have to accept and actually just relax into getting the love and connection with spirit world drawn close to you, and surrender to spirit world.
Trust your spirit team unconditionally.
Just open, speak to them, and become so much stronger connection that they're friends to you. Build that friendship up with them. Build that connection and friendship up with them. That it's second nature, and you'll never ever feel I block myself. Okay, it's sometimes it's the anxiety and the nerves, etc. as well. And I'd be quite interested to know actually if you do much meditation as well. Because meditation is a great way of calming the mind and body. And then the more you calm down, then the more you can open up to spirit world with the faith and belief that whatever they're giving you is true.
But the answer in the question,
feel that love. Now, okay, right, yeah, carry on.
Could I just have a slightly different perspective from a therapist point of
Absolutely.
view? So as I'm reading the question that's come up in front of me, the bit that really sort of stands out to me is the little phrase, "I block myself."
Yeah.
So from a therapist point of view, that would be all about identity.
Yeah.
And so I would ask Stephanie to perhaps take some time to ask her questions about who is I, what does I, where is I,
Yeah.
how does it kind of feel when you say the term I, it's a pronoun, I, and then also do the same for self or myself or self, because in one of the modalities I use is called integral eye movement therapy. And we have a whole section that we work on the framework about identity. And we use 4 pronouns: I, me, self, and you. And they're all like different parts of us. So that could actually potentially help Stephanie work out if there is a difference between I and self, and what is it that I doesn't want self to do. So
yeah, the more you say that as well, the more you actually say, I actually block myself when I'm, then you will block yourself. You will, because you've already put it into the mind, and the subconscious, and you're saying, I'm going to block myself here. Your anxiety is increasing there, so you're believing you will. But if you change your way of thinking and say, well, I'm not going to block myself. I'm surrendering, and I'm trusting, and I'm just going to relax, and I'm going to go with it. Change how you think. It's so important that you change how you think, especially when you're working with spirit world.
Yeah, but there's more than just a spirit. There's more than the spiritual side. There's a self-worth and a self-esteem side. And that's within the question. So even us as mediums and spiritual workers, Alice, you know yourself, there's a spiritual side. And then there's us side, the physical side, us, and how we feel. So I feel that that's something I had to get over with self-worth, was to try and understand my self-worth.
That's why it's important as mediums we consistently work on ourselves.
Absolutely.
We still work on ourselves,
Yeah.
and any good medium out there will continue working on themselves, because you have to keep working on yourself. It never stops. Yeah, I'm just having a little read at this as well. This is from Eva. I think this is from Eva. Thank you. I'm fascinated by your gifts. I'm highly intuitive and have premonitory dreams sometimes, but would love to develop a deeper connection with the spiritual world. I think the problem is my brain, too busy, too loud, can't quieten it down. That is a very common concept as well, and a lot of people when they do meditation will say, I just can't meditate because I start and then I start thinking, okay, so what am I having for dinner tonight? Did I put that washing on? My mind starts wandering, and it takes time. It does take time, to develop that actual way of calming the mind and the body. And the mind's so powerful though, Louise, isn't it? It's so powerful. You have no idea how powerful the mind is. You can create so much for your own mind. Yeah. Would you agree on that, Louise?
Oh, well, there's so much I could say. I could talk for the next 3
Well, I would like you
months.
to. Yeah, I would like you to. Yeah, I would like you to.
So yes, we can talk into existence pretty much anything that we want. There is a phrase, isn't there? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. I think Henry Ford said that. So the choice of words that we use can be really powerful. Someone said to me a while ago, words are so powerful. They're magic. They're like magic. That's why it's called spelling. And I just love that. I thought it's so right. And we are brought up with these words and this vocabulary that we learn from those around us, from our peers, from our teachers, from our caregivers, family, etc. And they can have such an impact, and they can be empowering and life affirming, or they can be damaging and really impact someone's ability to, you were talking earlier, Judith, about self-worth, etc. So depending on the words that we speak to ourselves, our negative self-talk, it can become a reality.
Yeah. I did struggle with that myself, and I think a lot of people have. But as you say, it's the words. I learned to change the words, and I learned to stop worrying about other people's opinions and just be happy in myself. And I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying I'm still trying, but I am. I'm still going.
Yeah, but that all stems back, I believe anyway, that all stems back from childhood, and there's actually a comment.
Later life, not all childhood for me. Some of it was later life.
Yeah, it wasn't childhood for you, is that what you say?
There was things in childhood, but my worst would have been my early adult years.
Yeah. Stephanie has put as well about she's had a bit of a rough and abusive life, and was made fun of through school. Natural inclination towards paranormal and spirituality. She felt even back then that is also I can I can connect with that. I had a lot of bullying at school as well, because I didn't fit into the narrative, and I did have the connection with spirit world way back then, and if you don't fit into that narrative, then children don't understand why you're different, but you are different because they just see it as being you're weird, so you get picked on, the quiet one who just doesn't say a lot, gets picked on. And then it can then carry on, as you say, Stephanie. I was the same as you. I was in an abusive relationship before I got married, and you can. I think, do we attract it? Is it what we think that we, our self-worth tells us that we only deserve? Who knows? I don't know. All I know now is, though, I've lined up with a good husband, but if I hadn't went through these experiences, and I will say to you, Stephanie, you'll make a very good medium as well, darling. You've obviously had that connection way back, and that's why you were drawn to spirituality, the paranormal, because they were connecting with you to tell you, hey, we're here, we've got you.
But Stephanie, when you were talking about the words that we use, to ourselves as well as others, inside I'm kind of giggling because our youngest daughter is over in university, and she needed chest of drawers filled up, so she got her boyfriend, and he'd never done it before, and he says, "Do you know what? This is just like adult Lego." And I'm thinking of that way, and I know it's funny, but exactly, instead of looking at it as an overwhelming problem, he just seen it as a next level of what he was used to. Does that make a difference in people's lives, seeing things like that?
Are you talking for me, Judith? Is that question for me? Oh, sorry. Yeah, definitely.
With words.
Yes, the words that we use and how we talk to ourselves will have a huge impact. And there's a few words that can really create this uncertainty within us, and one of them is, well, there's several of them. If we use words like sort of, kind of, probably, possibly, maybe, they all don't allow us to be certain in our decision making. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, have I made a mistake, or do I really mean that, or should I have said something else? Or so when we use words like that, they are sending signals to our subconscious saying, well, subconscious, I don't know what I want, so you can just make it up as you go along. And so that kind of sows those seeds of self-doubt, which can then make decision making very difficult, which can
what should we change them to? What
just be more definite. So it's about making choices and making more definite choices. So actually, rather than say, I think I know the answer, it would be a case of, well, I'm going to give the answer and I'll soon find out if it's the right one or not. So it's about taking that power back and being more assertive, having a sense of agency over what, the words that you use, so that you can be more succinct and direct. And because the more direct we are, then we're giving, the subconscious loves nothing more than a non-negotiable direction.
Yes.
So if you're saying to your subconscious, well, I want this or I want that, and there's no question, there's no doubt there, then that will help with finding your way, because the path will become clearer as you go through, because you'll be tapping into your own intuition and your gut feeling, knowing that actually this is the right for me, and I don't need other people's opinions, other people's interaction or interference.
Yeah, it's failure. People are afraid of failure, when really, if we look at that in a different way.
Yes, they're afraid of failure, but they're also afraid of success. So
yeah, I can understand
because
that.
it's different and unfamiliar. Our brains are programmed to thrive on familiarity, on pattern matching. So if we suddenly think about having some kind of success, it's like, wow, well, what the hell will that feel like?
Yeah.
And then create an anxiety within us. And also going back, I can't quite remember what part of the discussion it was, but just to share something that I found really interesting, is that our ego creates the conditions in which it can remain the same and keep us stuck. So, i.e., beliefs, for instance. And so if we have a belief that we're not worthy, which may have been created, by accident from when we were very young, not all sort of negative and limiting beliefs are created intentionally by our caregivers. It just happens, just because this is our human experience. So if that limiting belief of I'm not worthy has taken place and someone is unaware of it, but their behavior or their circumstances are constantly making them feel like they're not worthy, because someone hasn't taken them seriously, and as your listener earlier was saying, she blocks herself. So that could be the ego creating the conditions in which to keep the status quo of the I'm not worthy belief. So it is.
Would you not say, with going back to that question that you're still on, when you look at the wording of Stephanie's question, intuitively, would you feel she's worried about other people's opinions?
It could be, but I was drawn to the identity statement within that, which for me, and then also Stephanie's reference to ego, that was interesting, because ego means different things to different people. And for me, that was the ego creating the conditions in which to keep its reign over Stephanie. Does that make sense?
It does. I think I'm sitting like Alice. I think because you're seeing the spiritual side into, and I'm not saying you're not. I mean, just different ways. sometimes when we're on our journey, we can be amongst the wrong people that makes us feel like that.
Oh, sure.
Feeling fear.
Yeah, sometimes just that change in the circle of people.
Yeah, the energy.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
That's a massive change. I can only speak personally from
that's
experience.
true.
That's something that I noticed.
That's
That
very
I-
true.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
I've
you're right there, Judith. You know, and as
Yeah.
Stephanie also says, in groups with advanced mediums during practice, I block myself. So you know, so I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Is
Any
something
advice?
making,
Get out the
is
way.
something making Stephanie feel about
Yeah.
the ego, or
Ego
is it just
is something ego is something you do need a little of. You know, you can't not have some ego, because if you've not, you wouldn't be able to do much in your life without it. But it's using it the correct way, in a positive way as well. And you're right in what you say, Judith, because it can be, you know, in a group situation, it depends on the energy. And some people who perhaps think they are very advanced in mediumship and you're down there, you know, can make you feel that way. So you take on that persona as oh, I'm not good enough, you know, and you kind of shrink into yourself a little bit, you know, whereas we are all good enough, you know, and if you really click close with spirit world, we're all basically the same, but it's how we live our life that makes it different, and how we use our mind as well, that can make it different. My advice always is, don't ever let anybody put you down.
Yeah, but you know, listening to Louise's explanations, she gave 2, 3 really good explanations there. You know, from your profession kind of way, which totally makes sense. But then I can also see it in a different way. So it would be interesting to hear from Stephanie as to, in the environment, what she feels like, why is she getting it would be really interesting to hear a follow-on of Stephanie's question, if she's still there, to see if that explains more, or can we add more to it, or is Louise able to adapt any more to that by what she feels about the information given. Am I making sense?
Well, I would certainly, you know, if Stephanie's still there, then, you know, we'll look forward to receiving some response. But in the meantime, if I was, what I would say is to make friends with the ego part. The part of us that is causing us some upset is to make friends with it, is not to push it away, not to suppress it or distract ourselves. It's to hold hands with that part of us, to put our arms around, give it a hug, give it some, you know, that part some reassurance, and say thank you for bringing it to my attention, that this is particularly, you know, potentially a tricky situation, but I've got it. I'm okay. I'm confident in what I do. I'm confident in how I can behave and how I can show up in this situation. But thank you, and actually rewrite its job description, if you will.
Yeah,
I never heard of that before. Make friends with your ego. It's actually a really good idea.
Yeah. No, I hadn't either. No, I hadn't either. But you know, it makes perfect sense when you think about it, doesn't it? Make friends with your ego. You know, the ego though can be destructive as well. Though I mean, it can. You know, I mean, you can get people who use their ego in a destructive way, and you know, but ego, if it's used right and correctly, is powerful, and it is a good source that we do need. What do you think about that, Louise?
I think the definition is everything. So people's definition of ego can be very different, and therefore it means different things to different people. I have sort of I look at ego in 2 ways, I suppose. One from a more therapeutic point of view, which is the ego is an ego part, and there's a whole model called internal family systems, which talks about the different parts of us that are created as we grow up, as we go through from you know, being a baby and an infant all the way through to an adult. and there are different parts of us that are created through our experiences, and they're often based on something that's happened before. Sometimes they're completely appropriate at that moment in time. So, for instance, if something happened and we were scared by a dog that suddenly appeared in our back garden with that was growling and snarling, and it was huge and twice the size of us, we would have a response as a small child to want to run away and be scared by that dog, because that's our primitive brain kicking in. That's our fight, flight and freeze response kicking in, and it's completely appropriate for that situation. We want to be away from the danger. But if we're still feeling like that when we're 30 and the dog is a small chihuahua and it's a little yippity yap and it's got a sparkly collar on and it's being held by its owner, and we're still having that huge response to wanting to run away, then that could be said that's an ego part created from when we were 4 from that experience.
Yeah.
So we have an appropriate response potentially from a long time ago, and then it becomes inappropriate as we're an adult.
Well, what about you now? What about your own journey? What's coming up for you?
Well, I love hypnotherapy, but I spent a week in some training in the woods, in the forest. Basically, it wasn't every night. We didn't camp in a bivouac or have a hammock between the pine trees or anything like that. But we had a wonderful week. It's where I was sort of honing my skills as a nature connection guide. It was so profound that when I came home, I've said to a couple of people, I just want to throw hypnotherapy in the bin and just do this. I just want to live in the forest and share the forest with everyone. I've come to my senses. I'm not going to be throwing hypnotherapy in the bin, of course, because I love it and I still have a great passion to share it. But what I'm absolutely loving at the moment is nature connection. It fills the void that a modern life so often leaves us with. And I don't have to be the therapist. I am a facilitator. I'm nature's assistant, and nature is the therapist.
Louise, do you know the way you can take stuff in nature, like Paco, or you can take different things, and the monsoon, you can take other things, and it gives you that kind of hallucinogenic, which takes you on a healing journey. Would you ever try that?
No, I haven't. What the sort of I don't know, psycho, what were they called? I can't remember the the word. No, I haven't taken any of those myself. I'm open to.
Sorry, I'm lost for this. What was that question there?
There's a thing in the monsoon, there's a plant, but there's also like the toad. When you take it, it gives you hallucinogenic, but it connects you with your ancestors. It takes you on a soul journey, opens up all that awareness. I'm asking Louise, has she ever tried that?
No, I've never heard of it. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, I can't remember. My menopause memory loss has kicked in, and I can't actually remember the term for it. But there is a term for hallucinogenics to be used in a sort of psycho way. Yeah, so like ayahuasca and mushrooms, and there's frog poison and so on. Personally, if I was in the right situation with the right people, I might be open to it, but I don't think it's not the answer if I'm truthful. Because
I'm asking because Prince Harry's tried it for his.
Yes.
Yes. He has.
Yeah.
But he's for the public. He has. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Prince Harry, if you're listening, give us some advice on it. How was it?
Well, it's supposed to help. Apparently,
yeah, it can help, but also that there are other things like ketamine that say is supposed to help with depression, and using any sort of medication and class A drug, I would question. There are other ways I feel to help and support someone, but that's my own personal opinion. Would
you use like natural flowers or anything like garlic flowers or like they all have medicinal purposes would you use any?
I'm not a herbal medicine practitioner. I'm not a flower essence practitioner. I am more of a practitioner about getting out into nature and absorbing the phytoncides.
It feels amazing though, doesn't it, when you're out in nature?
Yeah, the sort of the essential oils that are emitted by the trees in the woodland, etc. They naturally increase our serotonin. They naturally suppress and drop and lower cortisol. You know, these essential oils absolutely increase our immune system. So they're excellent for sort of people's well-being. There's studies, it's evidence-based. Not that we need to know that we feel great when we're in nature, but some people like to know the evidence. And there's a whole body of evidence now talking about the improvement to people's well-being by being out in nature. And so often we're looking and grasping to find the next shiny object, the next shiny thing. Is it a new car? Is it a new watch? Is it a fancy holiday? Is it a nice outfit? When really,
I know,
if we went out in nature, if we remembered we are nature, we're not part of it, we are nature, then we would come back to ourselves. And when I say, talking about our true nature, that is our true nature, when we're in it, when we are around it, surrounded by it. And that helps us to drop all of the modern world
I totally
problems.
with you on this. There's nothing nicer than being out in nature, and also being around animals as well. That is the best healing for me. And I love the water, I love the sea. To me, I feel amazing after I come back from either being out for a nice walk in the nature, and you can smell, especially when you come into the autumn and the spring and you've got all the different scents and the smells, and the summer with the flowers. You come back and you feel different. And then your animals as well. I think it's amazing. I really do. And the sea for me is my healer. So I think it's each to their own. You have to find what works for you, but remember what does work for you and use that when you need it, because sometimes we forget we get caught up in the doldrums of life, and we actually forget. You get back out there into nature again and get yourself back grounded, get yourself reconnecting with yourself, and you actually look at things completely different when you come back.
Yeah, most definitely. It helps to bring a different perspective, and it helps to connect you to something greater than yourself. And which can be very profound.
So are you wanting to do like a kind of retreat of some kind?
Yes, retreats are on my radar, so to speak. So what I do is similar to forest bathing. And forest bathing is based on a Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku. So there's a whole sort of practice and invitations where you interact with nature in a very gentle way. So you can have a full session or a taster session. So
what is that? What is that?
A full session is when you have what we call a sensory awakening. So you are invited to lie down, and you are taken through your senses. So it's not a guided visualization, which I would do as a hypnotherapist. It's actually using the real time senses that you have in that moment. So start with sight before they close their eyes, and then I invite them to close their eyes, and then we're looking. Sound is usually the most impactful, because we bring our focus, we can hear different things, and then we go through to touch, touching their own face, but the air on their face, they're touching the ground. Sometimes we give them a nature object, a nature friend. It could be a leaf or a twig or a stone or something like that. And we don't just touch it, we allow it to touch us. So there's a real embodied experience going on, and that lasts for about 30 minutes or so. And then from there, they go on and do a slow walk, which is at a snail's pace. And there's usually a sort of a prompt so that someone can find, bring their attention to a colour or a shape or a sound or something. And then that is sort of the first half of the session. And after each invitation, there's a sharing circle. I'm sure you know the power of circles, circle work. So create a circle and we share. And that actually, for me, was one of the most profound elements, was when we spoke afterwards and we kind of had a talking stick. So, which was a nature object. It was a twig or a leaf or, piece of grass or whatever. And we took it in turns to talk, but we weren't talking and expecting a conversation. We were just sharing and being witnessed. And that is so powerful because no one's coming back. They're only, often in our modern worlds, we're only listening to respond and have a conversation rather than listen to actually hear someone else's experience. So that was very profound. And then there are other different, smaller, shorter invitations that go on: sitting with a tree, breathing with a tree, worry stone. There's a whole range of them.
Yeah.
So,
Louise, I wanted to ask you, not just for me, but for everybody listening.
Sure.
You were explaining about, the sensories that they see, the feeling, the touch. You went on to the touch, and you said you touched, but you also let nature touch you.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference between you touching the leaf and nature touching you? Could you explain that?
I think it's experiential, if I'm honest. I think it would be great if everyone went out and found themselves a leaf and actually did it and found out the difference, because obviously if someone's had their eyes closed for a good 20 minutes, then their senses are going to be heightened anyway. So that's the whole point of it. We're awakening the senses. And then when you touch something, we often use our fingers. They're very sensitive. They've got lots of nerve endings there, and we're touching it. So rubbing something and feeling the bark or the the fluff or whatever it is. But when you have something, you have it in your hand, and you're usually bringing it to another part of your body, which we don't often do. Or you can bring it to your other hand, obviously, and then because that has got lots of nerve endings, but they're kind of like in a relaxed state, they're in a receiving state, then it'll be a heightened experience when you allow the nature object to touch you and to explore our own bodies, and using a little piece of, a leaf or something like that. And whether it's a soft leaf, it's a dry leaf, it's a twig, we can really experience nature in a very different way, perhaps like we've never experienced it before.
I was just going to ask you as well. I know that you do help businesses. So what happens there? What do you do with that? Do you go out to businesses and get them all connecting into a group and work as a group, or is it an individual part? Is it private?
It's more than I help female business owners as to improve their mental health, so that they can ditch the overwhelm, they can work through their unprocessed trauma or emotions, so that they can then have more business success. I have worked with quite a large business last year. I worked with Virgin Media and delivered about 5 well-being sessions online. But normally when I'm working with business owners, they're solopreneurs, female business owners who are not having the success that they want because of their own maybe unstable mental health caused by unprocessed emotions, trauma, etc., which creates overwhelm, procrastination, perfectionism, blocking myself, other things that get in the way and stop them actually succeeding and stops them reaching their potential.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, fear of success is actually one thing.
Yes, yeah, definitely fear of success too. It can be all sorts.
I wouldn't have thought that, but it makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. If someone's used to not getting what they want, if someone's used to always, falling short, which is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, then potentially those negative and limiting beliefs will set up that failure to ensure that it keeps on happening. And then sometimes if they get a little taste of it, that can also be a shock to the system, because what they know, what they've done before is familiar, even though it's hard and challenging and maybe a bit soul destroying to keep on failing. Our brains are wired for that pattern matching. And our brains go, well, better the devil you know. Let's not go crazy here and get all successful. And then they go, and who are you to be successful? What makes you successful? So these underlying beliefs can really do a bit of a hatchet job on us, to be fair.
Yeah.
So we have to bring that awareness and understanding and that compassion to them in order to befriend them, make friends with them and go, hey, look, let's do this together. Let's go forward hand in hand, creating a life that we both get to experience and that we can enjoy together. So
if you get anything at all, Louise, you'd like to share with us, maybe it's coming up.
At the moment, all of my nature connection work is in person and local to where I live. So, like I say, I'm in Hampshire in the UK, sort of on the south coast. So, if anyone listens and is local, then please, drop me an email or pop onto my website for my nature connection sessions. Because this is a relatively new service, I'm in the process of updating my website, but there's sessions.
I am the same.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about my new website, and I've got a booking system now, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm all tech wizard, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that I will be creating some sort of membership. And I've got the name, I've got the core material, I know how I want it to look. So that is, again, in the pipeline. But I work on groups. I also do group trauma work, so I can take people through a protocol, and we just we have to have an onboarding. I don't like the word onboarding, but we have to have a sort of therapeutic initial consultation, have to fill in quite a comprehensive questionnaire, and then I can run a group session which keeps prices reasonable for everybody, and they turn up. It's once a week for 6 weeks, so that's also ongoing.
Okay, and I know that you are also on Facebook. So
I am.
I'm just popping that up there. You're on TikTok as well. Yeah,
yes.
Judith and I are on TikTok.
Yes, I haven't got many videos on TikTok. I don't know really what I'm doing on TikTok.
Yeah, no, I'm the same.
There. Once you get past them 60 minutes, and then you can be yourself.
Yeah. You're also on LinkedIn as well, and you're also on Instagram.
I am, yes. Yeah. Varying degrees of touch points with all the social media. It's not my most favorite of things to do, but I know that's how I can reach people. So
it's very hard to get around to all too, isn't it? It's very hard.
Yeah. Well, we're approaching our time now to kind of finishing. So I would like to thank you so much, Louise, for being on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And it's been great. And I really do wish you all the best in your journey. I think what you're doing is amazing. Anybody that's helping other people is working with love, and we need so much more of that in our world right now.
The world needs some love, doesn't it? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
so
it
really
much
does.
Yeah. What about yourself, Judith? What have you got coming up? Are you able to talk? God love you.
Right now, just next week, episode 12 of Prophetic News.
All right. Okay.
On Judith on our YouTube channel.
Yep.
I'm really excited to share that. Episode 11 was really good. So watch out for next week. After that, I'll catch you up next week. I'm fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, watch for the pathetic news coming out. Episode 12. So we'll be watching out for that. For myself, tomorrow night we have got at the Arden Cable Hotel in Helensburgh, we have Spark of Light spiritual events. And we have medium Angela Strang, who will be demonstrating tomorrow night. The doors open at 7:00. And there will be some ticket sales at the door. Anybody who's purchasing online, there is a competition for all those who have purchased online, where there's 2 free prizes to be won on the night, but that's just for online ticket holders only. So there will be some tickets available at the door, but subject to availability as well. So please come along if you want a lovely night. Angela is a completely different medium altogether, and we're all different. We all work different. Yeah, you'll be in for something a bit different tomorrow night. She's a great spiritual connection, but she also has a great sense of humour as well. So anyone who knows Angela will know exactly what I mean by that. She has a beautiful soul and she works with pure love. So if anyone would like to come along, as I say, doors open at 7 and it starts at 7:30. And you can also catch me as well. It's funny, I'm trying to find myself here on this on my email. If you want to catch me, you can give me a message. Also, tickets are on Eventbrite and also the hotel itself if you want to contact them. So that is basically what I've got tomorrow. I will not be taking any part of the demonstration tomorrow night because I'm still recovering. But Angela, you will have for the whole evening, and I will be hosting the event tomorrow night. So please come along if you're available. And next week we're back, Judith. We're back next week, same time, same place, with a new guest.
Might be a bit noisier next week. Might get my voice back.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, your sexy voice might just disappear. Yeah. Well, so yeah, but no, we're laughing, but it's nothing worse though when you actually do lose your voice. It can be so frustrating because you go to speak and then it goes up, it goes down, it goes all over the place.
David says to me, Judith, you sound so much better like that.
That's a typical man's point of view, isn't it? Yeah. So, well, you look after yourself, and thank you, Louise, for being on. It's been great to meet you. And
thank you very much.
Yeah, and please, everybody, remember to please like and subscribe to your channel. It's free if you don't want to miss an episode. We will be on this Thursday on Spotify and Amazon, 8 p.m, and all our other channels as well. Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Radio Public, YouTube, TuneIn, Podchaser. So we will be in all of that too. So if you've missed an episode tonight, you can catch it on Catch Up. And we will also be live on Thursday on Spotify at 8 p.m. So on that note, I would like to just thank all our lovely guests tonight who have came on and shared a beautiful evening with us. And for all the listeners out there, I hope you've enjoyed this episode with Judith and myself and our lovely guest Louise. So on that, I would like to say, please look after yourself and each other and share that love to our world right now.
Good night.
Good night. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.